We're back in the room. Yeah, so a lot of the students have come back nicely working on their personal statements. We got time to fix this. If they haven't completed their personal statements now, that's not necessarily the end of the world. We've got time to work on those and to make sure they're as good as they possibly can be. The ones where we have a slightly greater sense of urgency, obviously those are our Oxbridge candidates, and they are in the main well underway with their personal statements. In fact, they're pretty much done in most cases. Again, we've got a little bit of time there. Oxbridge tests, they're coming up and they will be prepped for as we're going through. What I really want is, I really want all of these applications to be off our books by the 19th of November. Now, the formal deadline is the 29th of January. So you might be wondering, well, why do I want them off my books then? Well, the short answer is that the longer they take, the longer they take. The longer these things drag out, the more they just drag everything down with them. So we want them off our books and with the universities as soon as possible. And it kind of follows that if you're getting it's human nature, you know, first in, first out. So if you're there, you've got a huge pile of application forms sitting in the admissions office, you're going to work on them in the order they come in. So it makes sense to get them with the universities as quickly as you possibly can. But again, I want them all off our desk by exit. So your help really here is going to be just encouraging the kids to get on with it. If we're pushing on our side and you're pushing on your side, then we can do this. So ask them, you know, where are you with your application? Get them to show you their application form. Get them to show you their personal statement. And that way we can just all be pushing this process along as quickly as we can. Well, it's that total buy-in from the applicant that really means that these things work. So the more you can do to help us with that side of things, the better we're all going to be. Okay, so courses first. Again, most of this is already done. Almost all of the children I've spoken to have a very, very good idea what their course is going to be. Some of them are still thinking, well, I'm going to do business and something else, and that's fine. Or they're going to do economics and something else, that's fine. We can fine-tune that. But what we don't know right now, I still don't know. And to be honest, I don't know any of those. All of them are suddenly coming down to this idea of what they want to do. So they've all registered with their Ucas hub. We're coming up with those 5 initial choices. They then have to pay. In terms of payment, they pay online with a debit card. I think everybody now has a debit card, so they're okay. A useful point to make is that certainly when I did the Ucas form, as it was back then, we wrote it out by hand. It was pretty obvious which one was top and which one was bottom. That doesn't happen anymore. Universities just get an application through, so there's no first, second, third. As far as the universities are concerned, kids will have their priority, and that's fine. And we'll have that. Okay, so there we go. And then finally, the offers will start coming back over Oxford, for instance, you'll hear as soon as we get back from the Christmas holidays. But the offers start dripping in once the application forms go in. But only in May will we be asking the kids to start saying, okay, which ones are you going to do? And I'll explain exactly a little bit what happens there. Outside the UK, well, we've got good news and bad news. If you're applying outside of the UK, then you can make as many applications as you like. That's the good news. The bad news is that every application you do is a new application. We've got a few kids who are interested in looking at the Netherlands. I think the Netherlands is a fantastic place to go to university. And the university colleges there in particular are really, really strong. They offer some very, very interesting courses. The drawback is every single application you have to make individually. Now, a lot of this stuff's going to be cut and paste, okay, and I think it's €50 per application. But that's out there for you if you want to go down that road. In America, the CAP, or the Common Application Process, will cover some university applications, but not all of them. So just to be aware, if you're thinking of applying outside the UK, then you're going to be looking at an awful lot of paperwork. obviously one of the advantages of the Ucas system. So coming back into the UK, we've got our personal details, choices, personal statement, and school reference. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this because we've kind of already done it. And this is where the kids are at the minute. Certainly fine-tuning this, don't ask me why, it seems to take incredibly long. There are many, many details that they just need to get right. And filling in a form, I suppose when you're 17, 18, it's not necessarily something you're entirely used to, but we're getting there. And then we're talking about the choices. Now, I'm going to fine-tune this in a little bit, but in the UK, we've got 350 odd universities and 35,000 odd choices. That's, where's the hardest place to park? It's an empty car park. So there's a lot of things there, and out of that, they have to pick 5. Now, the standard model is you go, you pick your course, you go through all these various different things, and again, the kids are going through this, if not already through this at this point. And that's where the tutor's there to help them, and I'm there to help them, and the internet is there to help them. So they can't really say they haven't got any help on this particular place, or certainly on this thing. Then once we've decided on the course, then we choose the university. Again, human nature generally determines that they want to go to Exeter because that's where all the friends are going, or they want to go to Newcastle because that's where they're going to party hardest. But we just want to make sure that it's the course that's driving the application. And they do differ from institution to institution. All of the information is online, and we do go into that in other presentations in much more detail than we've had with the kids. So hopefully they're fully informed on that. Now, one of the things we offer, the sixth form, is something called Unifrog. All right, really, really stupid name, really, really powerful application. Now, I just went in and done a few things. The picture quality isn't that great. I do apologise to those of you up in the back. But if you go in on politics, for instance, you go in politics, you put in your A-level grades. I put in A-star, AA. And then what they say is, okay, these are your options. This is the menu. So if you're getting A-star, AA, then you get these aspirational ones here, which range from Durham. It's largely alphabetical. A-star, AA. These ones are all A-star, AA, down to the LSE. Now look, a word to those who are looking at the LSE. It is harder to get into the LSE than it is to get into Oxford or Cambridge. And that's not just because they hate private schools. There's no interview. The talent, the number of places is very, very small. And so why it says there AAA, basically if you're not applying to the LSE with 3 A stars in your pocket, that application is not going to go very far. So those are your aspirational ones. These are your solid ones. And there's some great universities there. We've got the University of Edinburgh up there. Sheffield, I haven't, what with being from the north, I'm a big fan of Sheffield. It's a great university. And it's one that just slips under the radar of a lot of people. Really, really strong for politics and international relations. And a great place to spend 3 years. And there, of course, QM down there, politics for the year abroad. Again, it says there AAB, but QM, very, very strong university, part of the Russell Group, London, immensely popular. They're going to be turning down kids and rocking up with A-star AA. So just because it says AAB, don't think you're going to get an offer if you're predicted AAB. You're going to be quite a long way down that particular pecking order. But there are universities for everybody, and here are the rest, all the way down here from Brunel. Again, it's alphabetical, so we've got lots from Brunel. Huddersfield, another great university. Yes, I know, me being northern. But Huddersfield is another great little place to spend 3 years. And it might be the right place for you. Sorry. No, I'm not going to say anything sorry because if you can't say something nice about somebody, you shouldn't say anything at all. Sussex, on the other hand, there's another cracking university. I love Sussex, great university, down on the south coast. You can have 3 fantastic years there, get a first, and then you can go off and be on an employee's radar. Because what really, really matters here, what matters more and more is less this name and more what you do with your time at university, which perhaps I'll maybe try to talk later. Anyway, that's politics. This is business. And again, we've got our aspirational ones there, and here's Durham again, say. So our systems will help guide kids towards making informed decisions. Now you can probably see there's one space left there, and I wanted to leave that because I was looking at this with somebody else the other day. And oh my good crikey. If you want to read maths at university, be afraid, be very afraid, because they take absolutely no prisoners. See there, Cambridge, A star, A star, A. St Andrews, the same. These are all A star, A star, A. Maths, for whatever reason, you don't have to be good on a British scale, you have to be good on an international scale. And that's the same, by the way, for economics. We get kids from all over the world coming to study economics and maths in the UK. So if you're not literally world class in this, you're going to find life very, very hard indeed. I was going through the maths ones with somebody, and they said, "Oh, I've got Lancaster in there as my reserve choice." And I said, "Okay, that's fine. That seems sensible." And then I looked up the applications to go and read, the threshold to read maths at Lancaster. Anyone want to guess what it was? No? I wouldn't have done it. 3 A's. To spend 3 years doing maths at Lancaster, that blew my tiny mind. I mean, you can still find places to do maths. At University of West Scotland, which I think is in Paisley, which you'll probably correct me, you don't want to spend 3 years in Paisley if you can possibly. John Moores University, that's Liverpool. So there's all sorts of things there. Now notice here, QM is offering a foundation year. Now, some places will offer foundation degrees. This is essentially a -1 year. So it's essentially a backdoor into university. Now, like a lot of backdoors, they're kind of shut in the face of the private sector. But nevertheless, there are some institutions where you can still get in on a foundation degree. Normally they're aimed at people, kids from deprived backgrounds or from overseas who haven't had the same sort of level of education that we've had here. But foundation degrees can be a useful way of getting in if all other opportunities are open. But it does mean you go in at -1 year, so it's rather like preschool for university. But nevertheless, it's out there should you wish to go. So, this is Unifrog. It's a very, very powerful tool. Again, speak to the kids. If they turn around and go, "Uni what?" then send them back to us and we'll give them a kicking. But they have all been introduced to this. They should all know how to use it, and it's a very, very, very powerful device. So then, once they've been through all of that, we would generally, or historically, we would advise this sort of model. You have 5 aspirational choices, you have 1 insurance choice, and then if all else goes south, there's always clearing. Now, clearing doesn't have the negative stigma it used to have, certainly when I was at university with clearing. It's not like that anymore. A lot of people will go into clearing by choice, and sometimes straight up, and sometimes they'll just win at that point. But again, the thing about clearing is less the stigma and more the range of options that are available to you. So if you're going into clearing, you're having to pick from what's there, rather than picking from everything, which is what they're doing when they're making those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 choices. Again, these ones over here, that's going to be at the top end of the probability curve. This one, we always advise perhaps 2 grades daylight between the aspirational ones and the insurance one. But I have a feeling this model may be about to change, and I'll explain exactly what I mean by that in a little time. Personal statement. These are incredibly hard to write. You've got 4,000 characters where you have to do everything. What the personal statement is your ticket on the bus. So this is what the admissions tutors read sometimes, and this is their insight into your mind. Now, I was at a conference, which one to check out. I was at a conference a while ago, and we had a panel of admissions tutors up there, about 4 or 5 admissions tutors representing different universities, and hundreds of people like me in the audience just trying to find out what we should be doing. And we say, okay, personal statement. How important is it? The first university we don't read them. Wow, fantastic! This changes everything. Because we sweat blood over these things. And then the next one said, no, we don't read them either. This is looking good. Suddenly my job has got an awful lot easier. And then we get to the third one. They say, well, yeah, we read some of them, so that doesn't really help us massively. And then the fourth one, oh yeah, we read them all. And then the fifth one goes, yeah, we read them all as well. So yeah, you pay some money, you take some chances. Some universities like Bristol will actually explain how they break down those choices, and they'll say, well, we allocate this amount to the personal statement, and we allocate that amount to the personal statement. The bottom line is, the personal statement needs to be good enough. Okay? The perfect personal statement doesn't exist. And a personal statement that exists only on a kid's hard drive is no good at all. It needs to be good enough to go. And what good enough is will vary upon the nature of the course and the nature of the application, but good enough is generally good enough. So we send a lot of kids off to do real estate at Oxford Brooks. The head's not here, by the way, is it? Good, I can say that. We send a lot of kids off to do real estate at Oxford Brooks, and obviously the threshold there for a good personal statement is very, very different from applying to law at Cambridge or Oxford. There's a different burden of proof for both of those things. But the personal statement needs to be with the university. It's no good if it's sitting here where we're owning it. We know what good enough is. We will guide your sons and daughters through that good enough process and make sure critically that we don't spend so much time tinkering that it doesn't go on. That's really what we're trying to avoid here. Get them to read it too, see what you think. But this is opening a door to mind. Various specific things that we will guide them through. It's very strict. It's very, very hard to do. The brief is very straightforward, but a very, very good personal statement is very, very hard to do. So it has to be good enough. School reference, well, this is our bit, and we're pretty good at these, I'd like to say. What we want to do is we want to work with your sons and daughters, because they've only got 4,000 characters in there. There's going to be some stuff that they can't get into their personal statement. We can include it here. So lists of prizes won, lists of achievements achieved, that can all go in here. Whereas the personal statement is really, this is how I think, this is why I should be on your course. And then what we do in our references, we back that up with hard evidence, and also give some sort of indication as to their quality. Before I go on, any questions on personal statements or school references? Yeah, sorry.
Well, people who here from North Six,
yeah.
What we do first, like, references,
yeah. What do we do for people who have just arrived? We will contact the old school. I mean, when you arrive, you send across your latest set of reports. We'll go and look at those. We'll try to get some information from the old school. Often that doesn't come through. However, we're very, very good at writing references. And so it won't take long for us to get a sort of measure of new arrivals. And they've been with us for a year anyway, so we'll have something to go on from the lower seats. So yeah, we can always work on that. We can always work on that. It's really not a massive problem.
Some of them.
Yeah, sure.
Are the references tailored to the course they're applying?
Very definitely, yes.
So you have 5 different references?
Sorry?
You have 5 different references?
No, and that is a very, very good point. When you are making your application, you can only submit one personal statement and one reference. So what that means is that your 5 choices have to be broadly aligned. So you can't apply to law at Oxford and basket weaving and electronic music at Keele, because you can't sort of stretch something across that sort of distance. You can apply for history and politics at this place, and then politics and history at that place, and then potentially international relations at that place. But again, you've got to be stretching what you're saying.
It's a sequential thing. The choice is personal statement and then the school reference, bearing in mind the choices are made.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We will all, because what the personal statement is that I have to, it's not that I want to study politics at your institution, I need to study politics here. If I don't study politics at your institution, I'm going to explode, it's going to be really messy. And then what we will say in our references, yeah, they're absolutely right, they should be studying politics at your institution, and here are the reasons. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you share reference with the students and parents?
We are happy to do so. We're very proud of our work. I'd be very, very glad to do so, and if we didn't, you can always get it through GDPR anyway. So we have to bear that in mind. But at no point will we ever say in reference for the love of God, don't give this person a place. I don't think I've ever done that. But there's always a first time. Ucas grades. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. When you submit your Ucas application, there's a bit at the bottom where it very, very unhelpfully says predicted grades. Now, this is when the school says we are presenting these grades in support of our students' application. So, you can imagine what happens next. Ucas grades are part of the game that we play with universities. They know that everybody inflates their grades. Actually, again, when I was at the recent Ucas conference, they said that our grades were amongst the most accurate 16th percentile or something like that. Because we take our Ucas grades very, very seriously, because there's no point us saying, oh yes, this student's quite clearly going to get A-star, A-star A, and then they go off to an institution where they're expecting them to perform an A-star, A-star A, and they're not really an A-star, A-star A student. I mean, we've done nobody anything today, we've just set them up for a massive fail. And so what we want to do is that we make sure that kids have got aspirational Ucas grades, but not completely unreasonable Ucas grades, because we don't want to set somebody up for a fail later down the line. So, as I say, it's part of this game we play with Ucas, and with the universities. And so what we do is we look at, what is the best possible case here? When all of the stars align, and the sun's in their face and the wind's in their back, what's the best possible case here? And what we found, actually, historically, is that if we take their mocks at the end of the lower sixth, and we add one grade onto each subject grade achieved, and then add a further bonus grade, that gives us a very, very effective model vis-a-vis outcome. I did this analysis years ago. I love spreadsheets, and I just had these huge spreadsheets with the Ucas grades, with the final outcome at A level and the end of lower sixth mock, and this is what came out, remarkably enough. And so what that looks like is this. So if at the end of the lower sixth they got A, B, B, then that would go up to that, and that's the offer. Those are the Ucas grades we would support with that application. So that's one up in each subject, plus a joker or a bonus, if you like, for the sake of it. Now, that's the historical model. Apparently we're just coming out of some sort of raging death plague, and what that means is the historical model probably doesn't apply anymore. We did have Ucas grades at the end of last term, we did have mocks at the end of last term, but rather than holding to this as a hard and fast model, what I'm saying to the heads of department is, okay, this is the guideline. This is the guideline. But I'm prepared to accept your discretion off the top of this. Because last year was just crazy. So it would be brutally unfair to hold really strictly to this model. This is the guideline. And if, off the back of this, a head of department wants to use their discretion, I am perfectly relaxed about that. They know how the student's getting on in that class better than I do. And I would never presume to tell them otherwise. One thing that I should point out at this level is that they can't go down. If they, whatever they got in the mock, we're going to add one to that. I'm not going to let them predict lower. Sorry, I said that myself. It's not a prediction. It's a Ucas grade. I'm not going to let them go lower than this formula. And, just as a general professional courtesy, we never give a Ucas grade lower than C. Just don't. There's no point. So, that's the model that we're using then. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, does Ucas offer any sort of like data analytics services back to the university? So it says, this is what this institution has predicted for that student, ignore it.
No, not ignore it. But what they did, as I said, they did that analysis for us, and they said, well, some schools are just out there. We're actually pretty accurate. Right. In terms of moving from these Ucas grades to the final outcome. We're definitely one of the better ones. Now, the reason why I'm not going any further with this is that There is some flex in the model, as I've just said. You know, we're prepared to exercise discretion, and there will be some instances where a student comes up and says, "Look, Mike, you can't extrapolate. I had a really bad year last year, and I'm much better than that." And then there's other instances where some parents, I'm sure none of the parents here will come and say, "No, we need to get really aspirational grades for Tarquin so that he can go off and be that better person." So in some instances, we're prepared to say, okay, if what's going to get you working are 3 A's as your Ucas grades, we'll give you that. However, we will at that point probably send you an email saying, look, we're prepared to give you 3 Ucas grades, but that's not what we think is going to happen. So that's why we want to make sure that we don't conflate these Ucas grades with predictions. They are not predicted grades. And if we are required to do a favour for a particular student, to get them working, to inspire them to go higher, fine, we'll do that. But if it's a massive deviation from what we consider to be a reasonable extrapolation, we'll email you back just to confirm everybody knows these are not predicted grades. Now we get to the bit where I say there are some places where we simply can't do that. And this is, I think, the question you're asking. Where the application pool is very shallow, and where the application pool is incredibly rigorous, we cannot do this, because we owe a duty of care to future applicants. So places like, exactly those ones there, Oxbridge, LSE, ICL, and medical schools. We have a duty of care to those who are coming down the line, and if we get a reputation for unreliable Ucas grades, then that's a problem. Brunel, Huddersfield, Oxford Brooks, I don't care. But Oxbridge, LSE, Imperial, and the medical schools, we have to protect the integrity of our Ucas grades very jealously, because we've got future applicants down the line. We don't want to hamstring their application by having a reputation for being unreliable. Sorry.
No, I've just answered mine. ICL is Imperial.
Imperial, yeah. There's not many institutions that keep score. Yeah, these ones do. And so if we get a reputation for being a bit loose and enthusiastic in our Ucas grades, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So please don't ask for any what we call these enabling grades. We can't do them in these areas. We have to hold to what the data is telling us. Good. Right, nearly done, I think. So key points, we'll say Ucas application. Most of this is already well underway, which is good. We get the Oxbridge ones out of the door between Exeat and half term, and then we get everything else away by Exeat next time around. Okay, seeing as I've got you all here, it makes sense to talk a little bit about the new environment, both exams and universities. And I've already been asked once this morning, so I've adapted mine. Yeah, thank you. No, I'm very glad you did. Yeah, what will happen in the summer? And the answer is I have absolutely no idea, but he might. What's going to happen in the summer? Not a Scooby-Doo. All right? Now, I have to say that he inspires confidence much more than Gavin Williamson does, but again, that's setting the bar pretty low. We're looking at somebody who couldn't run a crockery firm and a fireplace company, who then suddenly finds himself running education. My God, what an absolute catastrophe that was. This is the man who got the vaccines out. This is the man who just seems sentient when he appears on Andrew Marr. I don't know what he's going to do, but hopefully he's going to be better than the last guy. Now, that's not a lot of use to the kids. So, what are we telling them? Well, we've got 3 options really, haven't we? We can either have terminal exams for the first time since 2019. We can have continuous assessment, CAGs, tags. Oh, sorry, fags, bags, and bags. Sorry, that's my attempt at humour. I don't know if anybody listens to fags, bags, and bags. It's a radio 4. No. It's set in Glasgow. You might not understand. Anyway, so this is what we had for the last time in 2019. This is what we had over the last 2 years. And we've got the hybrid system over there, which is going to be a bit of this, a bit of that. Now, I don't know which you would be putting your money on. Okay, who reckons we're going to have terminal exams? Okay? So some people, I've got a few hands for terminal exams. We think we're going to have school assessment. We've got a few from those, yeah. And hybrid system, yeah, let the record state that the hybrid system, one quite comprehensive there. I don't know, I think my money's on the hybrid system as well. But we'll find out. Now, what are we telling the kids?
When you say we'll find out, you are going to continue giving them assessments that could be input or
Well, I'm glad you asked that because that's the next slide. So, what we're going to do is we're going to say to the kids, okay, we're going to have these milestone tests, these milestone assessments in fairly regular parts of the curriculum. We're going to flag them up well in advance, and these are going to be our milestone or whatever they would come up with at this time. Those are going to go into the records, right? Now, if we go down the flags, bags, and bags route, then that's going to be our metric. And so we're parking that one out there so no one can claim, oh, we didn't know this was coming. It's coming, right? So if we've got that continuous assessment, that's going to drive this. Now, if we have year-end exams, then what possible better preparation can you have for that than a series of sequential exams? Now, again, as was pointed out to me earlier this morning, these kids haven't set exams in many instances since common entrance. And so chucking them into, if we do go down terminal exam, chucking them into a 2-hour exam at the end of however many years of not being assessed, that's cruel and unusual, particularly in terms of the drama exam, which is 3 hours long. And I think that the dean is going to realise that putting someone who hasn't sat an exam since common entrance into a 3-hour drama exam is probably a bit unfair. And so I think that's probably why I think we're going to wind up with a hybrid system. But what we will do is as soon as we know how these kids are going to be assessed, whatever the model is, we will start really cranking up those trial exams. Because they have to know what it's like. It's hard enough going into an A-level, even with just a series of mocks. Going straight into an A-level as your first exam since you were 11 is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. So we will work with the kids to make sure that they're properly prepared as we go into it. But the best possible preparation is all of these regular milestone tests. And then it's rather like, the beauty of that is it's rather like the GPA in America. You know exactly where you are. And if you're not happy with the GPA, well, you work harder. You do better in the next test, and you do better in the test after that. I mean, well, you guys probably remember your sixth one just like I did. I did absolutely stuff all work for the lower sixth. Coasted through that, that was fun. And then I sort of did a bit of work and did my A-levels. But I was good at exams. What can I say? I'm sorry. And our entire system is geared towards those who are good at exams. And the reason why it's geared towards people who are good at exams is because it's designed by people who were in office because they were good at exams. And they struggle to get their head around the fact that exams might not actually be the best way of assessing childhood ability or talent or potential. So if that's going to change off the back of this, then I'm perfectly happy about that, despite the fact that I'm good at exams. I'm way around that. But this whole exam treadmill is terrible. And I'm not really, I don't necessarily think it's progress to fit all of these kids into this regular continuous assessment model either, but I don't know for sure what the answer is. And if it's about working very, very hard over this year to hit your A-levels, then fair enough. I think it's probably about the most sensible thing we can say there. It is what it is, as the man says. So we'll work with that, we'll work with the kids. Already, some of the upper six are coming back to me and saying, a bit stressed. Yeah.
Are the children aware of it?
Sorry?
Are the children aware of it?
Yeah.
In your opinion, do you think there'll be reduced curriculum or not?
That would seem fair. That would seem fair. These guys, we were in lockdown during the Lent term. So there will be some attenuation of performance at that level. Obviously, they've just been through something that's really pretty terrible. I don't know if they'll necessarily curtail the curriculum. Again, this is total speculation. What they'll probably do, as much as they did at the end of last year, is just say, these are the areas we're going to be focusing on as we go into the exam. Because, for instance, in politics, you can't really take bits out of the curriculum. And that's generally the case with all of these things. They're all holistic subject. So we have to teach the entire curriculum, but as we're moving, hopefully, towards the exams, hopefully they'll say, well, these are the areas we would advise them to focus. We'll find out. We're all on this journey together. Yeah.
You haven't mentioned BTECs at all and how you treat grades.
Well, the thing about BTECs is that they have that continuous assessment. So they're being assessed all the way through anyway. So we already have a nice big repository of marks for the BTECs. Now, last year, there were some exams, and we had to extrapolate performance across those exams. But essentially, the BTECs were already on this particular program. That's one of the beauties of BTECs, for those who perhaps struggle to do their best work on the exam. I was doing a lot of kids in that direction. I love the BTECs, they're fantastic. Because they allow people to achieve without being subject to this trial by ordeal. But they're already on this program, effectively. Yeah. So, that's where we are. You know, is it ideal? No, but you know, global death plague and all that sort of stuff, you know, we need to adapt on the fly. And then there's one little bit that I just want to get across now. And then I seriously will let you go. And that's what a university is thinking. Now, this is where we sent our kids this year. I got into terrible trouble with the head the other day because I was showing this slide to some new parents, so prospective customers as opposed to paying customers. So we were trying to drum up business, and I was banging on about this side here. And then obviously wanted to bang on about this side here. And not unreasonably, I suppose, got that one wrong. That's why he's there. But you know, very, very proud of this one over here, and that's fantastic. So I think that kind of speaks for itself. What that tells us is that we can get the high aspirational kids into the universities they want to get into. Massively proud of them, particularly proud of them. 3 in the LSE. Again, I bang on about the LSE. It is harder to get into the LSE than it is to get into Oxford or Cambridge. And we got 3 in last year, which is fantastic. Same as we got into Oxford. I haven't got my medics up there. We got 4 into medical school as well last year, which is amazing. That's fantastic. If you haven't met Jess Weinhold yet, she is a force of nature. And anyone who's looking at medicine, she will be able to. Well, the reason why I want to talk about this is that all of these guys over here, some of these guys will come into Stowe saying, well, I don't want to go to university, it's not for me. You know, why do I want to go to university? Well, there are all sorts of good reasons why you want to go to university, and that's because there's a university for everybody. And you can see there's a fantastic range of places, and a lot of those kids who are on that list there were never going to go to university. So that's why I'm very, very proud of that side. Yes, I'm proud of this side, but I'm very proud of this side as well. A lot of those achievements are as great as my friends that are going off to the LSE and Edinburgh and so on. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was this. So I think thank you, staff. That's pretty amazing. I'm well chuffed. Well chuffed with that. And then we've got this one. And again, the head told me off for having this. He said, well, why have you got that one there? Because it shows that dip. And again, you know, he probably had a point. But I want to show you that because I need to explain what has happened there. So clearly what you can see there is that there has been a slight dip there in 2021 in terms of our applications to elite universities. And the reason for that is this. Now you can see there you've got a nice straight line. Our line of progression to elite universities is consistent, or at least it was up to that point. Now at this point, the world went mad, and we went from exams to teacher-assessed grades, and grade inflation just went off out of the through the ceiling. We didn't inflate our grades as everybody else. We presented a reasonable level of grades, and that's why we got a straight line. What was happening in all of the other institutions there was that their lines just went up through the ceiling at that point. And so elite institutions suddenly found themselves with a massive bulge in. You'll have heard about this. You'll have heard about this at St Andrews, and Durham paying people £50 to defer their application. They were paying them more this year, it's like thousands of pounds. But what's happened there is that at this point, a lot of these elite institutions found themselves caught out. They were caught out because they had over-offered. They always over-offer, but you know, most people don't get their offers. That year, everybody got their offers. And so suddenly they found themselves flooded with applicants. that's why our application here has just tailed off a little bit. It's not because we weren't doing our job, it's because those elite institutions found themselves with fewer places to offer. It's as simple as that. And the problem that your sons and daughters are going to have is that bulge has not yet worked its way through. So we're seeing a split in the market between the elite institutions, particularly those with small campuses, so places like Oxford, Cambridge, Durham, LSE to a certain extent, University of St Andrews. Those places that are literally hemmed in by geography struggle to accommodate the kids, and they've got that bulge year, 2 bulge years effectively to work through, and so it's going to be brutal. Exeter, on the other hand, they've got concertina housing, so they can continue to offer lots and lots of places. They can just extend their capacity to all of this rented accommodation. So where you've got an institution that's got very, very high application rates and that is particularly confined within a small geographical space, it's going to be ever harder than before to get into that. I mentioned the LSE because obviously it's harder to suddenly drum up a load more student accommodation in the middle of London. So what I expect is that we're going to see it harder and harder to get an offer from these places. What we saw this year was that universities were looking for excuses to get rid of papers because they don't profit. So I had one kid who got A*, A, C. The offer was A, B, so on aggregate, that was absolutely fair. No, didn't get a place. That was an end. Then I got another student who got a place from Durham. Now the standard rule is you do not have to confirm your place. If you hit your offer, then you're in. Durham sent around an email saying, please confirm your place. This poor kid, that email went into his junk mail. Didn't see it. We called every single possible street. This is unfair. This is not the process. Durham were going, sorry mate, I'm here to hear. He did get a deferred place, but actually by that time he said, right, stop you guys, I'm going to reapply somewhere else, and I'm very proud of it. What I'm saying there is that it's going to get harder and harder and harder to get these offers. And as a result of that, remember this was the standard model. What I think we might have to do is just change that slightly and perhaps introduce a safer choice, a sort of fourth pick. Safer choice. Now remember, you don't have to narrow that down from 5 to 2 until May, basically. So there's lots of time to make this decision. And by that time, again, we'll start to see what the demand is like, what universities are saying. This is why I tried to switch this off. I do apologize. We'll see what's happening there in the university market, and we will be able to advise the applicants accordingly. We started doing this last year for some people who had enabling rates. This is something we're looking at. We'll find out closer to the time whether or not this is going to be appropriate for this particular cohort. We're all adapting on the fly. Change made good. Yeah? So we're all changing everything we do to adapt to this new environment. It is a dynamic environment. We still don't know what Mr. Sahawi is going to do. We still don't know what the numbers are going to be like at the university. But we'll work with the children and we'll work with you, and we'll make sure that when the time comes, they're going off to the universities that they want to go to study the courses that they want to study. And that's about it for me, really. I'm here to answer questions, and if there's any sort of general interest questions, I'll answer them because they might be useful. Yeah?
I've just got a quick one. If your child is showing an interest in a gap year, talk me about that. Like, how does it affect the process? When do they declare it? What happens with that?